The story begins when the Holy Knight confronts a vampire, taunting him for hiding for so long. The Holy Knight says, "You have killed a lot, but your role is over now. God will no longer allow you to do as." He strikes down the vampire, gloating that he has finally earned the title of Vampire Slayer, and details the vampire's sins, stating that his very existence is a confirmation of his transgressions. With a chilling smile, he reveals a sinister truth to the vampire. Eugene reacts with shock, as the Holy Knight admits they deliberately held off on capturing him. Defeated, he listens as the Holy Knight explains that the delayed pursuit was intentional, and confesses to using him as a spectacle to gain attention and warn non-believers, causing Eugene immense pain. Eugene reflects on the harsh reality of this world. Only the strong survive. He recalls running away because everything is determined by strength, regardless of one's beliefs. The Holy Knight delivers a fatal blow, slicing him in half, and stands bathed in a crimson glow after defeating the vampire. The Holy Knight looks down, declaring that the vampire's mere existence defiles the church's image. With his last breath, Eugene wishes for another chance, vowing that he will no longer run. Dripping blood signifies not just an end, but a new beginning. Eugene gasps awake in a tent, disoriented but visibly younger and uninjured. He frantically looks around the tent, confused about where he is and what just happened. Checking his bandaged hands, he confirms his body is whole, despite the clear memory of his death. He recognizes his old tent and realizes this is no dream, but a return to the past. He concludes that he has gone back half a year to a time before the Holy Knights began their relentless hunt. Standing in his tent, he finally grasps the unbelievable truth. He has returned to the past. He clenches his fist, determined to make the most of this second chance. He used to hide in a remote forest near Broadwin Village, a place rarely visited by humans. He survived by hiding, avoiding human eyes at all costs simply because he was weak. This frail vampire, barely clinging to life, was Eugene in his past. Despite not craving human blood, he once succumbed to his instincts. A single mistake that ruined his life. Within days of his mistake, mercenaries and Holy Knights swarmed the village. No matter how long he hid or how far he ran, the Holy Knights always found him. Driven by fear, he survived for 12 years by drinking only the blood of beasts, a desperate existence. Running through the forest, he resolves not to repeat his past mistakes. Changing his future is more important than understanding how he returned. With fierce resolve, he decides that hiding will only lead to the same fate. He must become strong enough to fight back. Under a green moon, he decides to fully embrace his vampire nature and go with the vampire way, and he walks into a swampy forest, determined to change his survival strategy. Vampires absorb power through blood, and stronger blood yields greater power. He approaches a glowing target in the swamp. And with newfound determination, he spots his target, a powerful creature whose blood can make him stronger. A massive, terrifying crocodile-looking monster, the self-proclaimed master of the forest, lunges at him. He narrowly dodges the attack, his eyes wide with focus. The monster unleashes glowing energy blasts from its eyes, forcing him to evade. He assesses the situation. In his weak state, he can only dodge, but even a small wound would be enough to drink its blood. He deftly evades the monster's assault, determined to land a blow and claim its power. Mid-leap with his sword raised, he reflects on his past strategy of erasing his presence. He vigorously attacks the monster. Driven by a desperate need for power and the new understanding that hiding is futile, he lands a powerful glowing strike on the monster, desperate for power above all else. To his shock, his sword is broken, leaving him vulnerable. The monster's powerful tail smashes the sword, disarming him. He is violently thrown back by the attack, splashing into the swamp. Severely injured and bleeding, he lies on the ground, his eyes wide with pain and desperation. As the monster gaping M looms over him, he wonders if he underestimated its strength. Monsters are wild predators that wander the wilderness, unlike monsters found in dungeons, and some of him carry precious mana crystals, occasionally appearing even in mana-less regions. Eugene struggles against the monster. He knows the mana crystal is crucial, but he is overwhelmed by the difference in their strength. He realizes he's severely underestimated this monster. It's a forest master-level threat. Caught in the monster's jaws, he fears his life will end before he can even land a proper blow. The monster unleashes a devastating shockwave, a display of its immense power. Monster takes Eugene through his power in further deep swamp. He reflects on his complacency, wondering if he thought he would always get another chance after returning to the past. As the monster pins him down, he rejects the thought of having overestimated himself, recalling his life of struggle. His past was spent crawling and holding his breath just to survive. As the monster tries to bite down, he recalls doing anything and everything just to survive. With glowing red eyes and bared fangs, he defiantly chooses to fight for his life. No longer content to merely survive, his body begins to glow with power as he declares that he will fight and win. Red markings glow across his transforming body. He must win because if he loses now, there will be no second chance. He reaches for a pulsating red crystal within the monster, knowing defeat means no future. With fierce resolve, he grabs the glowing red crystal, determined to seize its power. Holding the intensely glowing crystal, he understands that true survival comes from overpowering others. The crystal shatters in a burst of vibrant energy as Eugene absorbs its power. Under the full moon, the swamp is tranquil in the aftermath of the fierce battle. A final burst of golden energy signifies the monster's complete defeat. Eugene stands over the defeated monster, reflecting on the promise he made to himself. The bloodied monster is proof of his victory and fulfilled promise. The swamp is now a bloody spectacle under a red moon, littered with the defeated forms of other monsters. Eugene emerges from the bloody swamp, fully transformed with long dark hair, glowing markings, and a powerful physique. And with a confident red eyes and a determined smirk, the new Eugene vows to seize both blood and victory. Under the moonlight, he decides it's too early to test the full power of his newly acquired mana crystal. He only wanted the beast's blood, but absorbing its massive magic stone grants him unbelievable power. The energy mutates his arm into pitch-black armor, a crucial upgrade that completely blocks sunlight. Remembering how monster blood helped him slaughter his past captors, he realizes this new strength changes everything. Paladin Jung is relentlessly tracking his undead aura. Hiding is no longer an option. He must build absolute power to crush his enemies. But knowing his limits, he retreats into the shadows just before dawn. Back at his lake, a tiny water fairy angrily curses the dead beast, then threatens RMC. But when the vampire coldly speaks, the fairy freezes. Shocked that he can actually see it, the creature immediately grovels, offering endless clean water to Sir Nightwalker. Ignoring the rambling fairy, the MC stares at his skin, questioning the 10 mysterious tattoos permanently etched into his forgotten memories. For 10 years, our terrifying Nightwalker has lived peacefully near a human settlement as the mysterious Red Monster. Our MC prepares to leave the forest, but the local forest fairy isn't quite ready to let him go. Thrilled to finally meet someone who can actually see spirits and magical barriers, the fairy begs him to stay. After all, it's been a long time since they've had a decent conversation partner. The fairy tries to strike a bargain, offering a lifetime supply of fresh, instantly purified water from the wetlands they are trying to restore. But our protagonist isn't interested. He bluntly tells the fairy to get lost and continues on his way. He eventually arrives at Broadwin Village, but the place is in absolute chaos. The villagers are frantically calling for the mayor. The reason, the infamous red-eyed monster has returned. Gathered at the edge of the village, the terrified people stare at a massive pile of hunted game, deer, rabbits, and ducks. It's way more than usual. The villagers are hesitant, whispering among themselves. Usually, this mysterious beast only drops off food in the dead of night, once every half a month. Why is he here now? What does he want? The vampires reveal from the shadows of the tree line. A figure steps forward. "May I step into the village?" he asks. The villagers freeze. The strange man living at the foot of the mountain finally shows himself, and the shock is palpable. He explains that the reason he has isolated himself all this time is simply because he had caught a disease. However, with long seclusion he has recovered. The crowd is stunned, not just by the glowing red eyes of the supposed monster, but because he is remarkably gorgeous. Internally, our vampire knows that to survive in human society, you need to build trust and show goodwill. Even the fairy, who has tagged along, is confused. Why go through the trouble of hunting for humans when you aren't even going to eat the food? The mercenary ambush, but our vampire has a darker, more urgent reason for stepping into the light. He knows that very soon, a ruthless band of mercenaries is going to storm village and slaughter everyone. He needs to stop it. As he walks, a fairy accidentally bumps into him, completely captivated by his striking face. But there's no time for pleasantries. Sensing danger, the vampire and the fairy suddenly stop and slip back into the dense forest. Right on cue, a group of rugged mercenaries appears. They spot the protagonist and immediately assume he's a scout for the village. Seeing that he's alone and lacks any proper armor or equipment, the mercenaries decide to kill him on the spot to keep the element of surprise. Big mistake. Before the mercenaries can even react, there is a blinding flash. In an instant, one of the mercenaries loses his head, sending a spray of blood painting the forest leaves. If he wants to build total trust with the village and avoid any suspicion, there is only one logical solution. Standing amidst the terrified bandits, the gorgeous, red-eyed vampire makes a cold declaration. He is going to kill every single one of them. The mercenaries quickly realize this isn't just some guy from the village. Someone screams the truth. He's a vampire. While some panic, others see dollar signs. Handing a live vampire over to the church would mean a massive bounty, but their greed is immediately punished. Rather than running, our protagonist goes on the offensive. His hands shift, forming terrifying, dragon-like claws that pierce straight through the mercenaries' armor, effortlessly tearing off heads. The remaining bandits are horrified. One of them screams to just retrieve the bodies and run, but it's too late. The vampire's strength is overwhelming. He snatches a sword right out of a mercenary's hand, driving it straight through the man's chest. When a massive, brawny bandit charges him with a heavy weapon, our MC simply catches the blade with his bare hands. In one fluid, brutal motion, he stomps the giant's head straight into the dirt, killing him instantly. The surviving mercenaries circle him, terrified and wounded, realizing their only hope is to attack all at once. Moments later, the villagers, having heard the screams, rush into the forest. They freeze in horror at the absolute massacre before them. The mayor nervously looks at our protagonist, asking the obvious question, "Did you do this?" Without missing a beat, the vampire lies perfectly. He claims he was simply on his way back from checking his traps when he stumbled upon the scene. He points to a pile of dead black wolves nearby, explaining that a massive pack attacked the travelers. He stepped in to fight them off while they were eating the corpses, but there were simply too many. The mayor inspects the bodies. Sure enough, there are deep wolf claw marks and bites on the victims. Relieved, the mayor apologizes for suspecting him, thanking him for his bravery. But the fairy, watching this unfold, is absolutely stunned by our MC's cunning. The fairy knows the truth. Our protagonist slaughtered the mercenaries, and when the wolves showed up smelling the blood, he killed them too. He even took the time to personally carve fake claw marks into the mercenaries' bodies to hide the evidence. Covering his tracks is smart, but the fairy can't help but wonder, why is this incredibly powerful monster trying so hard to play the good guy in front of these humans? To solidify his cover, our MC discovers a letter in one of the dead men's pockets and hands it to the mayor. The mayor's face drops. The letter bears the official seal of Lord Tywin. Reading the contents, the mayor yells out in shock. The letter mentions a boy named Pelid. These mercenaries weren't just passing through. They were sent to the village to assassinate Pelid, the illegitimate son of the Lord, who is currently hiding right there in Provo village. We then flash back to the final moments of the fight to see what really happened. The mercenary leader, terrified by the brute strength of the vampire, orders his men to attack at once. But when the leader charges, our MC simply fixes him with a glowing red gaze and kicks him squarely in the stomach, sending him flying into a tree. Desperate, the leader begs for his life, claiming they just had business in the village over the mountain. "The village is mine," the vampire replies coldly. Realizing his lie won't work, the leader confesses. They weren't hired by the head of the Tywin family. They were hired by the legitimate sons to kidnap the boy, Pelid. They brought an entire small army just in case things went south. Internally, the pieces click together for our protagonist. He recognizes the name behind this order, Bertil Tywin. Bertil is the general manager of the Vampire Pursuit Squad, the very knight who tormented him in his past life. Our MC realizes that in the original timeline, Bertil likely didn't order the village massacred. The mercenaries did that out of sheer greed. However, because the whole village was wiped out, the church sent paladins to investigate, which ultimately led to our protagonist being discovered and hunted down. By slaughtering the mercenaries here and now, he isn't just saving the village, he is erasing the event that ruined his previous life. With the interrogation over, the MC looks down at the defeated leader. "Understood," he says calmly. "Watch out for wolves on your way back." "You're really letting me live," the leader gasps. "Thank you." But before the word can fully leave his lips, his head is swiftly severed from his shoulders. The vampire's secret is safe. When Murren questions the killing, he explains that he could not let the man leave as he knew his identity as a vampire. He glances into the darkness, adding that there is another more immediate reason for the execution. His point is proven as the glowing eyes of a hungry wolf pack appear in the trees drawn by the scent of blood. Back in the present, the chief confirms to the agitated villagers that the dead mercenaries were indeed the guards sent to escort Felon to the castle. The villagers debate what to do. Now in a precarious position since the Lord's son has lost his official escort, seizing the opportunity he created, Eugene steps forward and offers to escort Feld to the Lord's castle himself, citing his long experience in the woods. Stunned by the generous offer, the chief insists they could not possibly ask such a dangerous task of him. With a charming smile, he claims that a knight would never decline a chance to help, prompting a weary sigh from Murren at his shamelessness. She is so surprised by his claim of being a knight that she can only stammer in confusion. The villagers are equally baffled with the chief pointing and repeating a knight. She, floating beside him, finally puts the pieces together and shouts his name in disbelief. Enjoying the dramatic tension, he smiles wryly and apologizes to the crowd for his delayed introduction. With a grand gesture, he formally introduces himself as Yan Eugene of the noble house Eugene, leaving the villagers shouting in utter disbelief. The villagers murmur in shock, some realizing they should now address the red-eyed monsters as Sir Eugene. Miriam scolds Eugene for taking his lie too far, but he confidently explains that these simple folk have never seen a noble before. He observes that the whole village is already abuzz about a noble hiding among them. Realizing they are too naive to tell the difference, the villagers eagerly question him about his past, wondering if he was a knight in seclusion for training or to heal his wounds. He vaguely explains that circumstances led him to cut ties and leave in the forest, an explanation the villagers readily accept as proof of his noble swordsmanship. The village chief laments their poverty, unable to properly reward Eugene, who simply asks for a place to rest for the night. Delighted, the chief insists it's no trouble at all and humbly offers his own home for the nights to stay in. The next morning, Eugene looks out the window of the village chief's house. In the privacy of his room, he tests his skin reinforcement ability, covering his hand in the black scales he gained from the forest master. He notes that the black scales can block sunlight to some extent, which will make his upcoming journey much easier. Murren chastises the ignorant night-dwelling vampire, mocking him for claiming to be a knight when he can't even read. He nonchalantly states that it doesn't matter if he's found out since he's leaving anyway. This prompts she to ask about his true goal. She questions why he's suddenly involving himself with the village after years of solitude, just as someone calls for Sir. Eugene's from outside. As Feled announces they are ready to depart, Eugene points out to Miriam how he has already gained social status overnight. He explains his philosophy to her. Humans trust authority more than words, and by leveraging his status, he can reduce a 100 lies to 10. And he acknowledges that this village is likely the only place his hasty lie would work, as true nobles would be far less gullible. Adjusting his mask, he declares his intention to turn this lie into the absolute truth. The village chief hands him a statement of explanation to avoid misunderstandings and asks him to take good care of young Masters Feld. Feld, packed for the journey, formally introduces himself and says he looks forward to Eugene's guidance. He introduces himself to Feled, thinking that he will use the boy to turn his lies into truth to become a real noble. The villagers watch as Eugene and Feled depart from Broadwind village. The pair journeys through vast open fields toward their destination. As they approach a village nestled in the mountains, Feld reads the signboard and identifies it as Brahms. Surprised, Eugene asks if he can read, and he confirms that his late mother taught him and explains that his mother, despite her low status, was taught to read by someone she loved. He muses that he never imagined that person was Veril, while Murren whispers to Eugene that this is a good opportunity to ask him for reading lessons. Feld stammers in disbelief when he asks to be taught how to read and write. Unable to comprehend a knight being illiterate, Eugene spins a story about his family having fallen, claiming that a single sword, not letters, is what kept him alive, and continuing his act of a fallen noble. His strategy is clear: make Feled doubt him, then make him believe, building a trust so thick it can cover any lie. Miriam can't help but laugh, complimenting him on his top-notch acting. She happily tells him everything is fine, but warns that overusing his lies might make people suspicious. However, she realizes with the start that Feld's expression shows he has already completely bought Eugene's story. Feld apologizes, admitting he was suspicious because the villagers called Eugene a monster, but now he sees they were just biased. And vowing to judge with his own eyes, he reasons that it's plausible for someone from a warrior background to have neglected their studies. He earnestly offers to secretly teach Eugene whenever he can so that he won't be embarrassed in front of others. As he asks to know more about him on that time, Eugene senses an imminent threat. A crossbow bolt flies towards Feld's head, and he cries out in shock that is captured by Eugene. In terror, Feld falls on the ground just as a group of armed men appears on the path ahead. The bandits joke among themselves, one chiding the other for not pulling the crossbow trigger properly. Feld trembles in fear, realizing they've been ambushed by bandits. The bandit leader smirks, noting that Feled's terrified expression makes their intentions obvious and that this will be quick. The leader orders them to drop their luggage and empty their pockets, threatening death if they don't move quickly. Before the bandit can finish his threat, Eugene flashes past him in a blur of red, his sword drawn. In a single fluid motion, he decapitates the bandit leader, stunning Feled and the other bandits. A bandit screams, "Boss," as their leader's head falls to the ground. Eugene reflects on his movements, noting they were as nimble and fast as he wanted. An enraged bandit with an eye patch screams and charges at him with a massive axe. Eugene effortlessly cuts off his head. In a flash of crimson light, he dispatches the remaining bandits with blinding speed. A lone surviving bandit stumbles back in terror, trying to call for someone. His desperate plea for help is cut short as Eugene's throw's blade slices through his chest. Standing amidst the carnage, Eugene looks down at the pile of corpses, remarking that he really can't understand it. He cleans his blade, questioning why humans try to kill and rob those weaker than themselves. He finishes off the last bandit, wondering if it's fine to torment someone just because they look weak. Turning to the horrified Feld, he asks if learning to read will help him understand such things. Feld is left speechless and terrified by the sudden brutal display of violence. Covering his mouth in shock, he recalls his earlier promise to judge with his own eyes. Eugene, his clothes stained with blood, tells Feld that he is free to believe whatever he wants, but promises that not a single drop of blood will ever touch him. Eugene, Feld, and a hidden Murren arrive at a bustling town, their first stop on the way to Lord Tarwin's castle. The marketplace is alive with activity as vendors hawk their wares, including rare medicinal herbs from a recent dungeon raid. Locals haggle intensely, with one man complaining that a shop down the street is selling the same goods for half the price. Murren, experiencing a town for the first time, is giddy with excitement over all the strange and cool things to see. A wary Feld advises Eugene to be careful, as the merchants in this town are known for being exploitative. He recounts how the village chief would always get flustered and ripped off whenever they came to this market. The chaos of the market continues as another customer, realizing he has been swindled, loudly demands a refund. Unfazed by the warnings, Eugene dryly comments that one needs money in the first place to worry about being careful. Telling Feld to wait, he confidently strides towards a leather shop. Ready to secure some funds, he presents a large pile of wolf pelts to the shopkeeper, asking him to appraise the leather. The shopkeeper immediately recognizes the rare and valuable black wolf leather, surprised to see so much of it at once. The greedy merchant sizes up the mysterious cloaked Eugene, trying to gauge if he can be easily cheated. And seeing his shabby clothes and bandaged hands, the merchant grins, believing this wanderer will be easy pickings. He begins his swindle. Claiming the leather is damaged and offering a paltry 18 silver coins for the whole lot. From the shadow of his hood, Eugene's eye flashes a menacing crimson in response to the insultingly low offer. The merchant is visibly shaken and sweating profusely as he stares into Eugene's unnaturally red eyes. Stammering, the merchant quickly changes his tune, admitting the black wolf leather is rare and that he could perhaps pay a bit more. Under the crushing pressure of Eugene's silent glare, the terrified he wishes his customer would just speak instead of staring. Trying to regain control, he forces a laugh and generously raises his offer to 23 coins for the first-time customer. Eugene's continued silent disapproval is all it takes for the nervous merchant to up his offer again to 25 coins. As Feld watches in disbelief, the merchant cracks completely under Eugene's silent pressure, rapidly increasing his offer from 27 to 28 coins. The merchant mentally curses Eugene, frustrated by his silent, negotiating tactic and wondering just how much he is trying to get. Finally breaking, the merchant cries out his final offer of 30 silver coins, which Eugene calmly accepts, concluding the deal. Later that night, having left the town, Eugene and Feld settle down by a campfire for the evening. Eugene attempts to practice reading, admitting to himself that even after learning the basics from Feld, the script still looks like worms. Miriam compliments his new high-quality clothes, though she muses that one usually imagines vampires in fancy silk robes. Eugene notes that the merchant was surprisingly generous, prompting her to scoff and call the man a complete pushover. She can't believe Eugene settled for 30 coins, insisting that with a stare like that, he should have pushed harder and bought some expensive silk. He insists he only needs something to block the sunlight. But she chides him for being a shootin' and not enjoying life more. She passionately describes the ideal vampire life, living in a grand castle, commanding servants and drinking fresh blood like fine wine. When asked how she knows so much, she explains that powerful senior spirits who made it big in the human world would share their wisdom. She relays advice from her seniors about the long life of a vampire, urging him to learn to raid, to which he bluntly admits he can't. Just as he teases her about her limited abilities, Feld stirs from his sleep and calls out to him. A groggy but suspicious Feld asks who he was just talking to in the middle of the night. He smoothly lies that he was just talking to himself, and Feld apologizes for his earlier nausea triggered by the memory of the bandit massacre. Observing the resting boy, he explains to Murren that ordinary people simply aren't accustomed to the sight of corpses. Feld rallies, telling Eugene not to worry and that he has plenty of stamina left for their reading and writing lesson. With a bright smile, Feld says he has plenty of paper and is happy to teach Eugene as much as he would like. Under the quiet night sky, Feld patiently teaches the illiterate Eugene by the warm glow of their campfire. Eugene pretends to be amazed at how quickly he is learning, and Feld earnestly replies that it is because, sir, you are so amazing. Feld heaps on the praise, explaining that it usually takes a year to learn and that even he needed months, unknowingly reinforcing Eugene's deception. He tests Feld's resolve, asking if merely being able to read will be enough for his new life as a noble son. Feld looks downcast, admitting that his mother never told him the details and his new status as a noble's child still does not feel real. Blushing slightly, he confesses that he does not even expect his supposed father, Sir Tyrwin, to welcome him. Their quiet moment is shattered as a group of armored men on horseback emerges from the darkness of the woods. The leader of the group approaches their campfire, offering a disarming smile as he greets the two friends. The man explains his group is having trouble finding a good spot to camp and asks if he could trouble them with a question. The mercenary captain, noting their arms and equipment, politely inquires about their destination. Sensing that a lie would only arouse suspicion, Eugene tells the truth. They are heading to Lord Tyrwin's castle. The captain, Pardik, reveals they share the same destination and offers them alcohol and meat in exchange for sharing the campsite. A younger blonde mercenary named Robin questions his captain's generosity before aggressively asking if Eugene has any objections. Pardik apologizes for his hit-headed subordinate, dismissing Rabin as a new recruit who does not yet know his place. After introductions are made, Eugene declares himself Knight Jan Eugene, a statement that clearly surprises Rabin. Rabin openly mocks on his claim, pointing out his lack of a horse and armor as proof that he can't possibly be a knight. Leaning in, he demands that Eugene be honest and admit that he is not actually a knight. Growing more aggressive, he pokes Eugene in the chest, sneering that he has never heard of a noble house named Eugene. With a menacing grin, he glares at Eugene, daring him to challenge his words. Eugene remains composed, knowing he cannot back down from his claim now that Felid believes him to be a knight. He deduces that the mercenaries' true purpose is unrelated to his identity, but their persistent provocation is changing the situation. With cold calculation, Eugene sizes up the mercenaries and comes to a simple, deadly conclusion: I can kill them all. As tensions rise, his hand subtly moves, ready to unleash a slaughter at a moment's notice. He swiftly grabs the belligerent Raband from behind, shocking the young mercenary into silence. Pardy, the mercenary captain, intervenes with lightning speed. With a single brutal punch, he sends Rabin flying, de-escalating the tense situation. The force of the blow sends the young mercenary hurtling through the air, effectively ending his challenge. As Rabin groans on the ground, Pardik hastily apologizes to Eugene for the rookie's rudeness. Eugene calmly accepts the apology and tells them to find a place to settle down. Internally, he recognizes the need to become a real knight as soon as possible to avoid arousing suspicion in the future. Later that night, at the mercenaries' camp, Pardik glares at the still unconscious Rabin. Ribbon suddenly jolts awake, gasping for air. Confused about what happened, he is immediately burred by his captain, who calls him an idiot. Pardik furiously scolds him for recklessly challenging a knight, questioning if the boy has a death wish. He smacks Rabin again, yelling that his foolhardiness nearly got their entire group killed. He lectures the young mercenary for judging Eugene by his appearance, pointing out that Rabin was only focused on the worn-out sword. He schools Rabin on the finer details, revealing Eugene's robe is made of high-grade lycanthrope leather. Rabin is stunned to learn that the robe alone costs more than 3 times his monthly pay. He continues his lesson, noting that since Eugene was seen reading a letter, he is literate. Proving he is no ordinary man, he grimly explains that Eugene was seconds from drawing his sword, an act that would have meant death for most of them. He recalls carefully observing Eugene's posture while Rabin was running his mouth. He points out Eugene's combat-ready stance, right hand in his robe and left foot back, poised to strike. This stance, he explains, signifies a master swordsman who can perfectly align his center of gravity with his blade's arc. A terrified Rabin asks why his captain didn't stop Eugene, but Pardy retorts that he saved the boy's head from being sliced off. He asks his rookie if he has any idea just how terrifying real knights are. He describes them as professional killers from distinguished families who train with a sword from birth. They hone their skills by facing death in dungeons and killing countless monsters. Afterward, they stain their hands with human blood on the battlefield to earn achievements and the favor of nobles. Only after a lifetime of bloodshed can one finally earn an official appointment and the title of knight. He emphasizes that very few who dedicate their lives to the sword ever become knights, so one must be supremely confident to make such a claim. For a man who appears to be over 20 to declare himself a knight, his skills must be exceptionally high. When Rabin timidly asks if Eugene is stronger than him, Pardik soberly admits that he probably is. He notes that since their destination is also Tyrwin's castle, they will likely encounter the mysterious knight again. Using his enhanced hearing, Eugene overhears the entire conversation. Realizing the title of knights carries more weight than he thought, he muses on why the Tyrwin family would hire such low-quality mercenaries instead of using their own soldiers. The mercenaries are startled when he suddenly walks over to their camp. He approaches with a smile, confirming he heard they are also headed to Lord Tyrwin's castle, and removing his mask to reveal his strikingly handsome face, he proposes they travel together. Both Pardik and Rabin are flustered by his appearance and quickly agree to his proposal. Their journey takes them to the city of Martella, located within the Tyrwin territory. Eugene reflects that having the mercenaries believe his knight persona will make it easier to gather information on the way to the castle. As he purrs his next move, his warder's spear companion Murren appears before him. She reports that she successfully eavesdropped on the mercenaries as he had commanded and is ready to share what she learned. The first piece of intel is grim. Lord Tywin's health is so poor that he could die at any moment. Secondly, a new dungeon was recently discovered, but the Tyrwin family lacks the funds and soldiers to explore it. Eugene considers the implications of a new dungeon opening, but she interrupts with a pressing concern. She points out that if Lord Tyrwin dies soon, Feld will simply become an orphan all over again. He coldly dismisses her concern, stating that Feld's fate is none of his business. Worried, Marion wonders what will happen if Feld is killed by his own half-brothers. Eugene reasons that the dying lord likely summoned his illegitimate son simply to see his face one last time. Looking at the boy, he knows their fates are now intertwined and bound for a dramatic change. After their long journey, the cart driver announces that they have finally arrived. The party stands before the magnificent gates of Rose Castle, the seat of Lord Tywin's power. Eugene and Feld proceed toward the entrance of the impressive fortress. Murren excitedly urges Eugene to climb the ranks so he can live in a grand castle like this one day. He curtly tells her to stop spouting nonsense and hide, leaving a nearby Feld momentarily confused. As they approach, a guard blocks their path and demands they state their business. Pardik steps forward to handle the introductions, explaining that they are a mercenary troop before asking the noble for his name. The noble proudly introduces himself as Cammer Twin, the eldest son and heir of House Tyrwin. He dismissively orders the mercenaries to stop doling and begin unloading the goods they've brought. Noticing Eugene and Felid, he condescendingly asks why they aren't helping the others. Eugene steps forward, introducing himself as Knight Jan Eugene and declaring that he has brought Felid. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by the arrival of a red-caped knight who calls out to his big brother Cammer. Eugene freezes, instantly recognizing the voice of a man from his painful past. The approaching knight chides Cammer, reminding him that inspecting outsiders is his duty as a guard of the castle. With a grim certainty, Eugene confirms to himself that he could never forget that voice. He recalls this man as one of the vampire hunting commanders who discovered his hiding place in his previous life. A flashback shows the knight mercilessly hunting him down alongside the holy knight, young Dirt. He stares at his old enemy, the man who tormented him before his regression, Knight Verthel Tyrwin. The tense family reunion begins as Veril Tarwin, the second son and a knight, coldly demands to know what his older brother was doing at the castle entrance. Kamara, the heir, scoffs at his younger brother's question, sarcastically asking if he needs to report everything as if you were the one in charge. Frustrated by the jab at his status, Verl insists that's not what he meant. Their standoff is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of Eugene, who calmly steps between them. He presents a letter announcing that it's from Chief GV of Broadwin Village. Recognizing the village name, Verl snatches the letter from Eugene's hand, his expression shifting to surprise and suspicion. Cammer watches with a abused expression as his younger brother intercepts the letter. Verl questions the letter's arrival, wondering why the chief didn't deliver it himself. After reading the letter, Cammer expresses his disbelief. He questions the story about mercenaries being killed by wolves and identifies the boy with Eugene as their illegitimate half-brother. Felid nervously introduces himself while Cammer puts on a fake welcoming smile, mockingly asking if he's their new brother. Ignoring his brother's sarcasm, Verl sternly informs Feld that their father is eager to see him. With a dismissive click of his tongue, he orders his men to take Feld to be washed and dressed. As guards escort him away, Feld looks back with uncertainty at the tense scene. Eugene boldly steps forward, stopping Verl in his tracks. The knight turns to face him, a look of pure shock on his face. Refusing to be dismissed, he states his terms clearly. He wants to discuss his reward first and demands a meeting with Lord Tywin himself. Verl's face contorts with rage. He flatly rejects Eugene's demand, his eyes glowing with menacing energy, and trying to get rid of him. He claims their father is too ill, and offers a reward in gold if Eugene will just leave. Eugene remains unfazed, reminding him that he worked hard to bring their long-lost brother to the castle. Losing his patience, Verl grits his teeth and warns Eugene not to make him repeat himself. Cammer strategically intervenes, questioning his brother's decision to prevent their father from meeting the man who brought them their new sibling. Veril argues that their father is too frail to meet a stranger, but Kama continues to press the issue, feigning concern. The argument intensifies with Kama accusing Veril of twisting his words and attempting to control their father's schedule. After that, Kama turns to Eugene with a theatrical apology, blaming his brother's desire to roleplay being the heirs for Eugene's inability to see the Lord. With a condescending pat and a sinister smile, he attempts to dismiss Eugene, wishing him a safe trip home. And then puts his arm around a reluctant Felid and leads him away to the castle, effectively ending the conversation. Watching them leave, Eugene realizes he was never going to be granted an audience with the Lord. Just as Kama leaves with Feld, someone else grabs their attention, a muscular red-haired knight who announces he's found the man he was looking for. Galadic nonchalantly throws a heap of beaten men to the ground, explaining they're lazy mercenaries he caught stealing from villagers. And he suggests they kill one of the mercenaries as an example to maintain discipline. Veril looks on nervously, remarking quietly that those men were temporarily hired for the upcoming dungeon raid. And to de-escalate, he suggests they move the conversation inside and offer that Galadic and Pardic accept. As the knights depart, Pardic turns to Eugene, identifying the imposing newcomer as the renowned Sir Galdic, and elaborates that Galadic is a rising star known for his monstrous strength, having recently placed third in a major tournament. A flashback reveals the source of his fame, Galadic brutally overwhelming more than 1,000 competitors. Eugene wonders why such a powerful knight is in this territory, and Pardic speculates it's because of the newly discovered dungeon. He explains that successfully conquering a dungeon is a massive, albeit dangerous achievement for any knight, and concludes that Gallic is likely using this dungeon as a stepping stone to gain favor with a more prominent family. Eugene confirms with Pardic that his job is finished. He turns to the mercenary captain and asks, "Can I be your client next?" As night falls over Rose Castle, the political games and power struggles continue within its walls. Veril watches Gelfredic brutally train the mercenaries, stealing his resolve to conquer the dungeon at any cost. Kama broods over his younger brother ambition, because having strategically recruited Sir Galridic to bolster his own claim to succession, and knows that if he and Gallic succeed in conquering the dungeon, public support will overwhelmingly shift in his favor. He lamenting his inability to hire anyone competent for his own attempt on the dungeon. His thoughts are interrupted by a knock. A servant announces that Sir Eugene is requesting to see you. He recalls the mysterious man who delivered Felid and decides to let him in. Eugene enters and Kama welcomes him formally, curious about the reason for the late-night visit. Kama reassures him that Felid is safe and that a reward will be forthcoming once their father is well. And then he thanks Eugene for trying to deliver the letter to him directly despite Veril's interruption. Eugene smirks, accepting the thanks, but pointedly mentioning his surprise when a third party. Veril intervened in business meant for the Lord. Kama's eyes widened slightly, intrigued by Eugene's directness. Getting straight to the point, Kama asks what Eugene wants. He replies that he's here to make an offer. He says that he wants to be included in the dungeon raid. Kama suddenly erupts into boisterous laughter, finding the proposal highly amusing, and he admits that Eugene is far more interesting than he initially judged. Leaning in, he asks, "Did you say that you're a knight?" And he cynically questions Eugene's motives, suggesting he's just trying to build a reputation, and asks why he should grant such a request. Eugene leans back coolly, stating that his proposition is a beneficial one that will cause Kama no harm. He specifies his incredibly generous terms. He will take only 100 silver muns and half the loot, leaving all the valuable mana stones for Kama. Kama grows suspicious of the overly generous offer, but he cuts him off, demanding a simple yes or no. And with a confident smile, Eugene reminds the heir exactly who holds the power in this negotiation, stating, "It's not me who's in a corner right now, it's you." Kamara confirms Eugene's desire to join the dungeon subjugation party. Eugene lays out his surprisingly modest proposal. Just 100 silver coins for his entire mercenary band and half of the dungeon's byproducts, excluding mana crystals. Suspicious of the generous terms, Kamar points out that the offer is well below the market rate, but Eugene coolly presses for a decision. He rationalizes that Eugene must be an honorable wandering knight unconcerned with money who prioritizes his code above all else. Recalling what he has heard, he begins to believe this mysterious and principled knight might be exactly what he needs. Sensing Kamar's desperation, Eugene smirks, pointing out that he is not the one in a hurry to make a deal. Kamar's eyes widen in realization. Eugene is right. He is the one whose position is precarious, and with the image of his brother, Verthal, and the powerful Sir Galdic looming in his mind, he knows he is outmatched without help. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he realizes Eugene is a cunning strategist, not just another muscle-bound knight, and seeing no reason to refuse such a good opportunity, he formally accepts the deal and extends a hand to his new ally, Eugene. In a flashback, Eugene explains to Pardik his preference for byproducts, as they are more profitable than mana crystals due to high purification fees. Pardy, playing his part, advises Eugene to tell Kamer that he will only take the byproducts knowing it is a key part of their plan. He concludes that this condition will back the desperate Kamer into a corner, leaving him no choice but to accept Eugene's proposal. Elsewhere, Verl scoffs at the news of his brother's last-minute recruitment. He confronts his brother, mocking the desperate attempt to add a new member and warning him that a dungeon is no playground, and emphasizes that a dungeon is a brutal place of life and death, and that he will not let an amateur hinder their progress. When Sir Galadic chimes in, Berthel says to him he has no expectations for any knight Kamer managed to recruit. He explains his skepticism, noting Kamer's poor relations with other nobles and his lack of strong connections, and tells Gallic to deal with the newcomer himself, much to the other knights' annoyance. Kamer arrives with his new recruit, apologizing for the delay and preparing to make the formal introduction. With a confident flourish, he announces the newest member of their party, Knight Yan Eugene. Eugene makes his grand entrance, flanked by Pardik, Robin, and the rest of his mercenary band. Verl is stunned. He recognizes the man from before, shocked to see him now leading a group of mercenaries. And with a condescending smile, he objects, stating that they cannot accept someone with unknown origins and unproven skills. Kamer counters that while Eugene's origins are a mystery, he can personally vouch for his skill, which surprises Gallic. And to prove his point, he brings up the troublesome bandit group that had been plaguing the Territo's border. He boasts that Eugene single-handedly eliminated the bandits with only a short sword, proclaiming his skills are more than sufficient. In a sudden, violent test, a member of Verl's party hurls a knife straight at an unsuspecting Eugene. With incredible speed, Eugene draws his sword and effortlessly parries the flying knife in a shower of sparks. The deflected knife slams into a wooden wall, its head buried deep from the force of the impact. The thrower, Sir Galfredic, lets out a delighted laugh, impressed by Eugene's sharp reflexes. Eugene's mercenaries watch in stunned silence. Galedic approaches, offering a backhanded apology before pointing out Eugene's pristine skin, suggesting he is a sheltered noble, and challenges the young masters to a duel to personally test his skills. In the castle's courtyard, a crowd gathers as word spreads that the renowned Sir Galadic has demanded a duel. The onlookers shocked that such a spectacle is happening so suddenly, and they murmur about Galredic recalling that he placed third in a tournament and can allegedly tear monsters apart with his bare hands. The crowd already feels a bit of pity for whoever has to fight the fearsome knight.